welcome everybody. We are back with 8-minute webinar this week with M Booth. This is a unique one, so excited to share some insider information with you. Today we have Amy Honori, who's the Director of Talent Acquisition over there. So let's get right to it. Amy, why don't you tell us briefly what you do at M Booth, and then let us know what M Booth does.
Sure, of course. Thank you very much. I am the Talent Acquisition Director for M Booth. So in my role, it is to oversee the hiring across every single discipline for the agency.
Where can candidates find entry-level or internship opportunities traditionally?
Of course. So typically our opportunities will be found in one or two places. Number one, we'll have it posted on our website, which has every single opening that is up to date. So that's the first traditional method. We have opportunities that are posted not just for roles right now, but for pipeline opportunities. So that's number one, definitely check out our website. Number two, we definitely amplify our brand on LinkedIn as well.
Again, typically, do the roles say entry level? Do they say internship? Is there a trick for people to be able to quickly identify?
Yes. So for the roles, if it's an entry-level role, it'll definitely say digital coordinator, for an example. We have an opening there right now. Or it'll say account coordinator, which is more on the traditional PR track. But either way, the entry-level roles will say that this is an entry-level position requiring 0 to 1 years of experience. It can be a little bit misleading to people who are unaware of agency life. Sometimes we have positions that say associate or assistant, and a lot of the times that isn't an entry-level role. So my advice is to definitely read within the job description where it'll say specifically years of experience required.
Okay, great. And then what locations do you typically hire for?
So for now, everything is remote, but primarily in New York and additionally in San Francisco.
Typically, what's the first thing you look for on a resume?
I want to see internship and experience, and I want to look at major. So for example, I want to see someone, if you're going into an account coordinator position, I want to see that number one, that you're interested in the communication space. And number two, I'll definitely look at the experience. So even if it's not necessarily a direct PR or communications experience, I think it's important that people have a variety of experiences and a variety of things under their belt that they can take and translate into something really awesome. So I look at longevity as well. So if someone has worked in something unrelated and they've worked there for years, that shows me that they're committed, that they really do value their place that they're working. And if they're looking to break into something different, like communications and PR, I think that's awesome. And seeing that longevity, to me, really shows me that they are a committed worker.
Do you typically read objectives?
I would not recommend an objective. To be very honest with you, being someone who has done recruitment for almost 8 years exclusively, I think an objective can hinder you rather than propel you forward. When you put an objective, say for an example, I'm looking for an account coordinator role, and I say in my standard resume that I'm sending out to 100 different companies is, Amy Honori is looking to break into digital, etc. So if someone reads an objective, and again, it could just be a slight misstep that a candidate is making, and if the objective says that you want digital, but the opening is actually for something more traditional or analytics driven, that's going to have a tendency to rule you out because it's something that you're not really interested in. So that's why I advise to not put an objective, because for lack of better words, less is more.
Great. And what about a cover letter? Do you read cover letters?
I will read cover letters, but again, I don't advise doing them. I think in a situation where you're looking for an entry-level role within communication space, I don't think it's necessary. Again, I go with the less is more mentality, one-page resume. I want to be able to see, the quality of what you're doing, not the quantity, especially with someone that has less than a year of experience.
And some folks have different opinions on the design of the resume. With engineering, I think everyone just wants it as straightforward as possible, but with more creative roles like agency, do you have a preference for people that maybe put care into the layout and the design? Not keeping it to one page is obviously the big priority, but do you have a preference there?
I have a preference in terms of keeping it to one page, simply to make it cleaner. Have the traditional layout with what your experience is, where you went to school, what you're passionate about, link to your portfolio, your Instagram, Facebook, etc. But then at the end or somewhere in the middle, say a little bit of fun facts about yourself. And I think that goes a long way.
Like, what are your thoughts on replacing the objective entirely with just an about me? So it's like
I think that's terrific, because I think that shows personality right there.
Is GPA important?
To me, not so much. I think you can take any experience and make out of it what you put into, and I don't think the GPA is necessary to show.
Can you explain or can you describe your typical interview process?
It's actually quite seamless. So essentially, we review all the applicants, and then our hiring managers will review resumes and or portfolios. They'll identify probably around 5 to 10 people that they're really interested in pursuing. From there, I'll engage initial contact, because an HR professional should always be the one to have first communication to, properly vet the candidate, discuss salary, where they're targeting. Are they interested in other companies or agencies? Because you do want to know your candidate marketplace, and you want to know what is the shelf time that you have with that candidate. And then from there, after engaging in those conversations, we set up first round interviews. And that's typically with the more junior level members of the team. And it's maybe anywhere from 2 to 3 people who do the first round assessment. And then from there, final interviews are determined to take place with probably one of the most senior members of the team. And then the decision is made. Some teams are a little bit different. Some teams really prefer to have just one round of interviews, make a decision, and then send a writing test to make sure. Again, it really depends on the team, but typically it's 2 rounds of interviews maximum with a writing test depending on the team.
And when someone does come in for an interview, what do you recommend from a preparation standpoint?
Usually I will say less is more, be comfortable, etc. However, an interview is different. So that is when you're showing your best self. So now, again, we are an agency. I don't think anyone needs to come in wearing a full business suit, but look polished and presentable. The best way I can describe it is on the nicer side of business casual.
What red flags or mistakes do you see with students?
I love an eager student who's applying to every single job, but when I see that, it shows me that they don't really know what they want to do. Now, what I think is a major misstep, and I say this with a full belief in the past 8 years, is typos on the resume. It shows me lack of attention to detail. So number 1, I would say that. And then number 2 is saying the wrong name. A lot of times candidates are not necessarily looking, and they're sending a blank statement to multiple companies and multiple people within talent acquisition and HR. And I can't tell you the amount of times I have gotten the wrong name. So it will not even be anything close to Amy. It'll be a completely different name. And that just shows me, again, the lack of attention to detail.
Are you comfortable with students going about the application process in a non-traditional format?
Yes. I think I can respect the aggression. We had a candidate apply, and then a few days later, I get a phone call. They were just like, "Hey, Amy, there's a package for you." It was the candidate who would apply to an entry-level role, and they had themselves branded onto a mug. It was their name, and it was the agency that I worked for, their colors. It was their email address, their phone number, their major, and it was 3 little facts about themselves. I had never seen someone put that much effort and thought into it. So I would give advice, maybe not a mug, but be creative in your approach. It isn't just reaching out and spamming on LinkedIn. I've had people in, again, previous organizations that they had physically come into the New York office to drop off their resume, and they dropped off their business card. And just taking that extra step, trying to set themselves apart, is huge.
Every recruiter, every hiring manager is very different. Some people will look at that in a bad way. Others will look at it in a great way. Some like designed resumes, some don't. And that's why there is no right answer. And trying to understand as much as you can about the company you're applying to is really your best chance. That's why we're doing these, which is great. Is there anything that, like a pro tip almost, that maybe a candidate could only find here?
So I would say to never give up and don't take no for an answer.
Amy, thank you so much for joining us. I very much appreciate it. I know the students watching will as well.
All right.